So you are telling me that Elendil, the ancestor of this man, the manliest man in all of literary and cinematic history, cannot break this hold and go save his friend from dying? Someone get me a drink. This is going to be a rant. It won't be a full rant, I promise, but do you remember in Kenobi, the scene where an 8-year-old Leia is being chased around by full-grown adults, and she seems to evade their every capture without a drop of sweat? Remember how a simple branch kept the people from actually getting to her? And they tripped and fell over each other in a laughable montage that wasn't supposed to be a comedy, but ended up being comedic gold. More in a bad way than a good way, but I digress. Yeah, that scene made me roll my eyes. It was cheesy, but I don't know. Maybe Leia was using the Force unintentionally or something. But this scene in Rings of Power with Elendil, it infuriated me. You are telling me that a full-grown adult male cannot evade the hold and break this little arm that is holding him back. I think it's absolutely absurd. And I hate scenes like this. Every once in a while, a movie or a show will have one that is so blatant, it just makes me wonder if the writers got lazy or something. It just doesn't make sense to me. How does a producer or a director look at something like this and think, yeah, no one will notice, that's good enough? At the very least, just add 2 characters holding him back rather than 1. How do they think that they can write one character lazily holding another character and that will keep them down through the death of another? And they're going to do it without any real struggle as well, because I mean, look at this stupid scene. I took as many screenshots as I could, and to be honest, if I just play this back and forth, it almost looks like they're dancing or something. It's an absolute joke. This isn't fully chalked up to the director or the producer either. This has a lot to do with the acting. It might be unrealistic to think this, but I think that I could break the grip that any human being had on me if they were holding me like that while I was trying to rescue my friend from drowning. Maybe that's a big red flag of mine, but I think it's a bit prideful, and I think a lot of men kind of think the same thing, but I don't care if Arnold Schwarzenegger or The Rock was holding me back. If someone I loved was drowning, I would get out of that grip in a half-second flat. And by the off chance that I wasn't able to get out of that grip, I would die trying to get to that person. And I would burst every blood vessel in my forehead in the struggle to get out of that grip. But in Rings of Power, it's just a nice little dance that 2 characters are doing with each other. No real struggle, no real pain, no real action. I keep thinking I'm too critical of the series too, and I think I might be, but let's compare it to the greatest movie trilogy of all time and the reason why this series exists in the first place: The Lord of the Rings. Now, in Rings of Power, Elendil can't break free of a grip that a weak-looking soldier has on him. But worse than that, Elendil looks like he's just faking the whole thing. The acting in it just feels flat. There's no pained expression on his face, no yearning or desire to even break free. It's poor directing and poor acting. Compare this to an eerily similar situation in Fellowship of the Rings. The first reason why this is eerie is because Aragorn is jumping off this stone structure and he yells out his ancestor's name, Elendil. The very Elendil that is in this shot, unable to break himself free from the grip of a wet noodle. The second reason is that Aragorn actually has 2 scenes I want to dissect in the Fellowship of the Ring that he is tied up with an Uruk-hai. Just to start off, look at these Uruk-hai. As Gimli would say, these are no mindless rabble of orcs. These are Uruk-hai. Their armor is thick and their shields are broad, and they look like they have been in the freaking weight room of Saruman's tower. Look at the freaking guns on this guy. But in the first scene, Aragorn has already taken out probably close to 20 Uruk-hai. And he finally gets tangled up with a massive one as Legolas takes out one after another, after another, after another, after another, after another, after another. Meanwhile, watch that scene back and look at the acting of Viggo. He's so unnoticeable, but he's on the struggle bus trying to get out of the grip of this massive Uruk-hai. And this is realistic. Even if I treasured Aragorn above all other characters in fiction, and even if I fully believe that he can get out of this grip as fast as Gollum will call the ring is precious, at the very least, there is a realistic struggle going on. There is Viggo Mortensen putting on the fight of all fights as a background character in this scene. I mean, he is in the background and looking like if he doesn't win this individual fight, then all of Middle-earth will perish under this Uruk-hai's leadership. But finally, Legolas comes to his aid, and we're saved. So while I still think Aragorn could get out of that grip faster than the movies really showed, I still think it's a brilliant bit of filmmaking because it shows two people struggling for survival. It's brilliant directing in knowing how to guide even a background character in this scene. And it's brilliant acting by Viggo in just making this seem so realistic. I truly believe that he's fighting for his life. And then a few moments later, after we hear the Horn of Gondor, Aragorn has to fight this dude in order to reclaim his dying friend's body. And while he doesn't get held up here, I love this scene in that Aragorn beats Lurtz with tactics rather than muscle. Because for the first minute as Aragorn was trying to outmuscle Lurtz, Lurtz throws Aragorn clean across the forest, throws a shield so hard that it lodges itself in a tree harder than the Ents with their Entwives. And then he looks like a psychopath, enjoying his own blood and this battle that he gets to participate in. It's absolutely mental. But look at the freaking struggle and believability that Aragorn portrays. You can't have your character be perfect. We all know that. And Aragorn meets someone who is physically just much stronger than him here. And you can see in every inch of his face that Aragorn is just trying to stay alive. But here, his ancestor, the person who marches to Mordor to fight the armies of Sauron, cannot get out of this wet noodle grip. It's just lazy. And this laziness has repercussions because while it's fine, we all know this is a fictional universe and it's a show, I still want to be as immersed as I possibly can. And scenes like this just remind me that it's actors like trying their hardest when they're not really good at something or they've never really experienced something in real life. It kind of reminds me of that scene in that SNL skit with Jimmy Fallon where he says he took a class at NYU in basketball rather than playing basketball himself. And to be honest, this kind of acting and this kind of like fake sport stuff happens all the time in shows. In Ted Lasso, it happens all the time. It's one of my favorite shows, but it's a bunch of people who don't really know how to play soccer in most of the soccer scenes. And to be honest, it's kind of fine for me because while we know the show is about soccer, it's not really. It's about much more. And it's just really about the management of a soccer team than it is about soccer itself. So it can have cheesy moments where the actors look like they've never played soccer before, and all of a sudden they start kicking around a soccer ball. I'm fine with that. But in Rings of Power, I don't know why, but it just bothers me more. It's a 5-second scene and I'm angry about it, but this is supposed to be one of the strongest and manliest characters in the show. But he'd rather sit here and dance with his co-actor than put on any real struggle into getting out of that grip. And like the Leia scene, it reminds me for a few seconds that this is a show and not real. And I know that's true, but that's not why I'm watching. I'm watching because I love Lord of the Rings and I want to escape to Middle-earth. But the Middle-earth I grew up loving is the one where Aragorn and the Two Towers can get out of the Uruk-hai death grip with a tap of his sword hilt to the thigh. And then he escapes holding his dwarf friend while his elf friend pulls him up. That's my Middle-earth. Not the one where the captain of Numenor can't even get out of a weak grip to save his friend from drowning. It almost looks like he doesn't even want to, which, I don't know, it might be a huge plot point later on in the series. One can only hope, because this scene, for me, makes me want to tap out and not watch this anymore. But who am I kidding? I'll probably be back for episode 6 next week. And remember, just to like this video, does a lot more good than you actually think it does. And then, subscribe to the channel if you want more nerdy content about Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, all the nerd stuff that we do here. And I will see you in the next one.